Claressa Shields abandoned a newborn baby over a Nintendo Wii. Claressa Shields sent her married boyfriend to physically repossess her fiancé's car in broad daylight on a public street in Michigan. And Claressa Shields' own mother, the woman Claressa Shields defends on every single live stream, was secretly cashing a monthly disability check under Claressa Shields' name since Claressa Shields was 9 years old. 9. Now hold on before you scroll away, because this is not a rumor mill segment. This is not a Twitter thread with blurry screenshots. This is not a shady blog with an anonymous source. This is a full family deposition, delivered on camera, by the one woman on this planet who knows every single closet, every single skeleton, every single lie Claressa Shields ever told to sell the good girl from Flint fairy tale to the boxing world. And the receipts just hit the internet like a freight train through a paper wall. Welcome back to the room where the loudest voices in the culture finally get put on trial for what they actually did behind the cameras. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and settle in for the ride, because what is about to unfold is not gossip, it is history being rewritten in real time by the one witness the Claressa Shields empire never wanted to take the stand. If you are a regular, pour something strong, sit back, and lock in, because tonight we are going straight past the surface layer of the story and diving headfirst into the family vault. And baby, tonight the vault is not just open. Tonight the vault is on fire. Let us set the record absolutely straight before anybody in the Claressa Shields camp tries to spin this into something it is not. Before Claressa Shields ever laced a boxing glove, before Claressa Shields ever climbed into a professional ring, before Claressa Shields ever wore a belt on ESPN, before the entire world ever knew the name Claressa Shields, there was Shalita. Shalita Savage. The cousin who turned down a full-ride basketball scholarship from Pat Summitt herself. Pat Summitt. One of the greatest coaches in the entire history of women's sports. A woman whose name is carved into a Hall of Fame. And Shalita said no to that scholarship, no to Tennessee, no to a career on the hardwood, so she could go back home to Flint and raise 3 abandoned children who literally had nobody else on earth. Shalita walked away from her own future in real time because Claressa Shields' mother was too busy chasing habits to raise her own kids, and Claressa Shields' father was locked in a state prison cell for the entire span of Claressa Shields' childhood. Yet somehow, on every single interview, every single podcast, every single Instagram live she has ever hopped on, Claressa Shields goes on record saying her father taught her how to fight. Her father. The man who was behind steel bars while Shalita was paying the light bill. The man who never wrapped her hands. The man who never drove her to the gym. The man who was not there. And Shalita? Shalita just came out, in front of a camera, and said what everybody in Flint has quietly known for the last 20 years. Here is where the wild part starts, and I need you to sit with every syllable of this. Shalita reveals that when she finally came back to Michigan after fleeing a violent domestic relationship in another state, she had absolutely nowhere in the world to land, and neither did the rest of her family. So Shalita opened her doors, for Claressa, for Brianna, for Peanut, for every single one of them. She took them all in under one roof. She fell back into the only hustle she knew to keep the lights on in a household she did not create and did not choose. And in the middle of that hustle, in the middle of feeding a house full of grown mouths, Shalita got pregnant. She could not afford the child. She could barely afford the household. So Shalita asked Claressa Shields, plainly and directly, for $500 to handle the pregnancy on her own terms. And what did Claressa Shields say to her own blood cousin, the woman who had already given up a Hall of Fame future to raise her? Claressa Shields told her cousin, straight to her face, that she did not believe in that choice. Claressa Shields told her cousin she would burn in a certain place for that choice. Claressa Shields quoted scripture at the woman who was quite literally keeping her fed. And then Claressa Shields promised, on her own name, on her own honor, on her own future, that if Shalita carried the baby to term, Claressa Shields herself would legally adopt that baby and raise it as her own. And Shalita, still trusting the little girl she had already sacrificed her entire adult life for, said yes. She said yes because she believed her cousin. She said yes because Claressa Shields had never given her a reason to think otherwise. She said yes because family is supposed to mean something. So the baby was carried. The baby was born. The baby came home from the hospital. And then, in the middle of a household running on financial fumes, came the Nintendo Wii. Listen to me carefully, because this is the exact moment a family disagreement turned into a full-character autopsy on Claressa Shields. Shalita, still running the entire household on her own back, still paying every single utility bill for a family full of grown adults who contributed nothing, pawned a Nintendo Wii to keep the water running in the house. Not a car. Not a house. Not jewelry. Not a designer bag. A used gaming console. A piece of plastic worth maybe $80 on a good day. And when Claressa Shields found out that Shalita had pawned that Wii to keep water flowing through pipes Claressa Shields was drinking from for free, Claressa Shields decided, on the spot, in that exact instant, that Shalita would never see that baby again. That was the crime. That was the offense worth cutting a woman off. A pond we used to keep water on in the house Claressa Shields was living in without contributing a dime. And there it is on full display, the actual moral compass of a woman the boxing culture keeps calling the greatest of all time. Now hold on, because it gets significantly darker from there. Shalita asked one simple, reasonable, motherly question before she walked away from that baby: who is going to physically watch this child while you are in the gym training 6 hours a day? Who is going to be in the room with an infant? And the names Claressa Shields dropped in response were names Shalita already knew were dangerous. Names with felony records. Names with reputations in the streets of Flint. Names no responsible adult would leave near a newborn. So Shalita did what any grown woman with common sense would do in that exact moment. She called the police. She got that baby back. She stood in front of a judge in a Michigan family court, and that judge looked directly at Claressa Shields and told her, in open court, on the record, that she was legally too young to adopt the child. And Claressa Shields, the same woman who had promised in the name of God to raise that baby, never came back for that child. Not once. Not one visit. Not one birthday. Not one phone call. Shalita has been raising that child ever since. Shalita pays the child support. Shalita signs the school forms. Shalita answers the parent-teacher calls. And that child calls Shalita Mama. Let that sentence settle into your chest for a second. The woman who performs faith and family on every single live stream, the woman who quotes scripture in every single interview, the woman who preaches about being a real woman and a real Christian on every red carpet, that same woman abandoned a baby she personally begged another woman to carry, over a pawned gaming console. Read that again. Read it slower this time. Because Claressa Shields cannot outbox that receipt no matter how many belts she wears. And this is only chapter 1 of the deposition, my friends. Because the conversation moved from the baby to the boyfriend, and that is exactly where the whole architecture of Claressa Shields' public brand starts to collapse in on itself like a controlled demolition. The conversation shifted to Papoose. And the second the discussion turned to Papoose, Shalita did not flinch, did not soften her tone, did not offer any diplomatic language. Shalita said, out loud, exactly what everyone in the industry has whispered for the last 2 years: Papoose is using Claressa Shields. Papoose is playing chess while Claressa Shields is playing checkers. Papoose is running a long con and Claressa Shields is smiling for the photo op. And the receipts on that claim are so loud they are almost embarrassing to lay out in public. Because let us do the math the way Shalita did the math on camera. Papoose has a daughter. Papoose's oldest daughter is 28 years old. Claressa Shields is 30. That means Papoose's own flesh-and-blood daughter is only 2 years younger than the woman Papoose is currently parading around the internet as his soulmate. When Claressa Shields was being bullied in an elementary school bathroom in Flint, Papoose already had a child learning how to walk in another city. When Claressa Shields was still using training wheels, Papoose was already changing diapers. Papoose is not a partner in this relationship. Papoose is a 50-year-old man who found a 30-year-old woman sitting on an $8 million boxing contract, and Papoose positioned himself accordingly. That is not romance. That is portfolio management with a wedding aesthetic. And here is where the wild part gets exponentially wilder. Remy Ma never actually signed a divorce. Papoose never actually filed a divorce. Remy Ma withdrew the entire motion. Nothing has changed on paper. Not one document. Not one court date. Not one signature. Remy Ma is still legally the wife. Claressa Shields is still legally the other woman. And Papoose is still quietly collecting from every single side of that triangle without a single legal consequence. Shalita spelled it out with the kind of clarity only a woman who has survived a few bad men can deliver. Married men will always tell you the divorce is coming, but the divorce never actually comes. The paperwork never lands on any judge's desk. The court date never actually appears on the calendar. And the woman on the receiving end of that fantasy is left holding a promise with no ink, no seal, no notary, and no future. That is Claressa Shields' current legal reality, and she is either too proud, too in love, or too obsessed to admit what the rest of the world can see plainly. Now let us talk about how Claressa Shields even ended up in Papoose's orbit in the first place, because this transition is where a fiancé became a footnote overnight. Before Papoose, there was Tony Rich. Tony Rich, who was already in a committed relationship with Shalita's cousin Sharonda when Claressa Shields entered the picture, and Claressa Shields moved in on Tony Rich while Claressa Shields was still technically in another relationship herself. Tony Rich proposed to Claressa Shields not once, but twice, on a yacht in Miami. Twice. And it was not because Claressa Shields hesitated. It was because the first proposal was not filmed at the correct angle for social media. The second take had to be reshot with better lighting and a cleaner audio bounce. That is not an engagement. That is a content shoot with a diamond as a prop. And half the crowd on that yacht in Miami had no idea who Claressa Shields even was. Shalita had to personally get on the phone with the event promoter to secure Claressa Shields' priority boarding on a boat where Claressa Shields' own name was already printed on the flyer. Let that image sit in your mind. The greatest of all time. On her own promotional yacht. Being turned away at the plank until family stepped in. And then came the repo. Because when Claressa Shields officially decided she was done with Tony Rich, Claressa Shields did not handle it the way a grown woman handles a breakup. Claressa Shields did not text him a goodbye. Claressa Shields did not block him on Instagram. Claressa Shields did not send back the ring in a padded envelope. Claressa Shields sent Papoose, the man she was not even officially dating yet, to physically repossess Tony Rich's car. In broad daylight. On a public street. In Genesee County, Michigan. Papoose drove the getaway vehicle. Papoose, the same man who supposedly hates the spotlight, the same man who supposedly stays upstairs and away from all drama, the same man who supposedly is above the internet, Papoose was outside boosting a fiancé's car for a woman he had not even locked in officially yet. That is not a breakup. That is a hostile takeover with a getaway driver. And now every reliable source in Genesee County is saying, on the record, that if Papoose ever sets one foot back in Beecher, it is up and it is stuck. Those are their words, not mine. Beecher does not play about Tony Rich, and Beecher does not forget faces. Now hold on and really think about what that entire episode tells you about the man sleeping in Claressa Shields' bed tonight. A man who will drive across county lines to repossess your ex's car will do absolutely anything, for continued access to your resources. That is not love. That is a business relationship with a marketing budget and a wardrobe stylist. And Claressa Shields, the four-time undisputed world champion, cannot see the con being run on her own doorstep because the con is being run by the man she wakes up next to. Because when the money is real and the affection is performed, the woman signing the checks is always, without exception, the last one to figure the whole thing out. That is a law of relationships older than boxing itself. Meanwhile, the internet keeps trying to defend Claressa Shields with the same recycled talking points every single time a new receipt drops. They say Claressa Shields fought her way out of Flint through sheer will. They say Claressa Shields is a self-made champion who owes nobody a single thing. They say Claressa Shields is a role model for young black girls in every low-income neighborhood in America. But here is the piece the entire Papoose payroll machine keeps burying underneath every fresh press release: Shalita is the reason Claressa Shields ever picked up a boxing glove in the first place. Shalita is the one who physically walked Claressa Shields into the boxing gym. Shalita is the one who introduced her to the sport because Claressa Shields was being bullied so brutally at Gundry Elementary that Claressa Shields tried to set the school bathroom on fire in the 3rd grade. That is not a talking point Claressa Shields wants circulating on any timeline. But it is a talking point that is on the record, on camera, from the woman who was in the school hallway that day. Shalita said it plainly for the entire internet to hear: if Shalita had taken that Pat Summitt scholarship and left Flint, there would be no Claressa Shields. No Undisputed. No $8 million contract. No Netflix documentary. No Papoose. Just a little girl in Flint who nobody helped and nobody saved. And here is the deposition line that hits the hardest, the one that should be echoing through every boxing writer's inbox by tomorrow morning. Claressa Shields' own mother, the same woman Claressa Shields defends with her entire chest on live stream after live stream, was collecting a monthly disability check under Claressa Shields' name since Claressa Shields was 9 years old. 9. That check was supposed to go toward the actual child. That check was supposed to feed her. That check was supposed to clothe her. That check was supposed to pay for her school supplies. And instead, that check quietly funded a lifestyle that had absolutely nothing to do with the little girl whose name was printed on the government paperwork. 9 years old. Read it one more time. This is not a rumor. This is not a whisper campaign. This is the family arithmetic that Claressa Shields has spent her entire professional career hiding behind a highlight reel and a Wheaties box smile. So let us total this up the way an accountant would total a suspicious ledger at the end of a fiscal year. A baby Claressa Shields personally begged to be born, then abandoned over a pond wee. A fiancé Claressa Shields robbed in broad daylight with the help of a married man. A boyfriend twice Claressa Shields' age emotionally and legally, a boyfriend who has not filed a single divorce paper in years. A cousin who gave up the Basketball Hall of Fame so Claressa Shields could even exist. And a mother who has been quietly cashing government checks in a 9-year-old's name for 2 full decades of Claressa Shields' life. That is not a champion's origin story. That is a full-blown documentary. That is a limited series with 6 episodes, a critically acclaimed narrator, and a Peabody nomination waiting in the wings at the network of your choice. And now the entire Claressa Shields camp is scrambling in real time. Claressa Shields went on live stream herself and tried to say Shalita is worse than every other viral cousin the internet has ever laughed at in the last 5 years. Claressa Shields tried to flip the entire script and paint Shalita as the jealous villain in her own family story. But every single time Claressa Shields opens her mouth to defend herself, another receipt drops from a completely different angle. Another timeline gets published. Another witness comes forward. Another neighbor from Flint hops on live and confirms yet another detail. Because the truth about Claressa Shields is not just one angry story from one angry cousin, the truth about Claressa Shields is a chorus of voices that all sing the same song. Cousins. Ex-friends. Ex-managers. Old sparring partners. Neighbors from the block. Elementary school teachers. Everyone is saying a version of the exact same sentence. Claressa Shields uses people, Claressa Shields discards people, and Claressa Shields performs a version of herself online that has almost nothing to do with the actual woman these people watched grow up in real life. And the loudest part of the whole Shalita deposition, the part nobody in the mainstream boxing media has been brave enough to touch on air yet, is the accusation that Papoose is not just Claressa Shields' boyfriend. Papoose is a full-blown financial operator inside the entire Claressa Shields brand. Shalita laid it out with the precision of a forensic accountant. Papoose married Remy Ma when Remy Ma was the biggest female rapper on the entire East Coast. Papoose stayed exactly where he was while Remy Ma was locked up for years. Papoose stayed while Remy Ma slowly rebuilt her entire career from a cell. And the exact second a younger woman with a bigger check appeared on the horizon, Papoose pivoted. That is a pattern. And patterns, unlike people, do not lie. Claressa Shields is not the exception to Papoose's lifelong pattern. Claressa Shields is the loudest confirmation of it in a decade. Here is exactly what should terrify every single person still riding for Claressa Shields online. When the $8 million contract runs out and the next promotional deal does not land, when the belts get harder to defend at 34 and 35 and 36 years old, when the pay-per-view numbers start slipping the way they always eventually slip in boxing, where exactly is Papoose going to be standing when the check clears zero? Where is the woman who once abandoned her cousin's newborn baby going to run to for shelter? Who is going to answer her phone call at 3 in the morning? Because Shalita has already answered that question in plain English. Shalita said, out loud, on camera, that she still loves Claressa Shields dearly, but Shalita is finally done being lied on. Shalita is done being cast as the villain in a story where Shalita was the only functioning adult in the entire room. And when the woman who literally raised you refuses to keep the family's secrets one more day, the entire empire starts to crack from the inside out, brick by brick, without a single hammer being swung from the outside. And there it is, the reason this deposition matters exponentially more than any surface-level celebrity headline you will scroll past this week. Because Claressa Shields did not just anger a random cousin looking for viral clout. Claressa Shields activated the one specific person on this planet who knows every single ledger entry, every single hospital visit, every single court filing, every single closed-door conversation, and every single receipt for every single betrayal from the last 25 years. Shalita is not a hater. Shalita is not a jealous relative. Shalita is not a clout chaser looking for a checkmark. Shalita is the actual executor of the Claressa Shields origin myth, and Shalita just filed for a full public accounting of every debt on the books. When the executor of your myth finally decides to talk, the empire is legally required to answer. And so far, the Claressa Shields empire has offered nothing back but excuses, tears, and scripture. So what happens next in this story? The boxing world will pretend for a few days that this is just noise from a cousin nobody has to take seriously. The Papoose payroll machine will try to bury the entire deposition under a fresh photo op, a well-timed engagement rumor, or a strategically leaked training camp clip. Claressa Shields will go on another live stream, cry a little, quote a little more scripture, laugh a little too loudly, and try one more time to reset the entire narrative back to her favor. But the internet does not forget the way it used to. The internet has already screenshotted every single word Shalita has spoken. The receipts are already being stitched into TikToks by teenagers with time on their hands. The timeline is already being fully mapped out on Reddit threads by strangers who never met any of these people. And somewhere in Flint, Michigan, a little girl who calls Shalita Mama is going to grow up one day, sit down at a laptop, and Google her own birth story. And when she does, she is not going to find a picture of a champion. She is going to find a picture of a woman who once traded her for a pawned Nintendo Wii. Now I want to hear directly from you before we wrap this deposition up for the night. Was Shalita right to blow the whistle on her own blood, or did Shalita cross a family line she can never walk back? Is Claressa Shields the actual villain of her own origin story, or is Claressa Shields a legitimate victim of a family that is finally airing 30 full years of unresolved trauma in public? Is Papoose the mastermind pulling every string, or is Papoose just a marionette dancing on his own wife's payroll? Drop your verdict in the comments below, because I read every single one, and I promise you, the next episode is going to be built entirely around the loudest arguments in that comments section tonight. If this exposé moved you, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and share this with the one friend in your group chat who still thinks Claressa Shields is somehow untouchable. Because after tonight, absolutely nobody in this story is untouchable. The receipts are hot. The vault is open. The deposition is only just beginning. And I will see you again tomorrow, when the next witness takes the stand.